The night was sinking slowly into the quiet streets of the old city when Elena first realized that love could be both a lantern and a wound. The sky, veiled in violet dusk, spread above her like a curtain of forgotten dreams. She walked with delicate steps, wrapped in a soft wool coat, the faint aroma of jasmine drifting from her hair. She had always believed that love was something tender, something that unfolded gently like petals touched by morning sun. She had no idea that the man waiting for her on the bridge would teach her tenderness through pain and hope through loss. Adrian stood by the railing, his silhouette carved in silver by the moon's reflection in the river. He was tall, quietly composed, yet beneath that calm was a heart that trembled with 1,000 unspoken storms. His eyes lifted when he heard her approach, and for a moment the world dimmed, as if even time bowed to their meeting. He whispered her name with a softness that stirred every fragile corner of her heart. She felt the air shift, felt the longing in his voice, and she knew that whatever would follow tonight, her soul had already chosen him long before her lips could admit it. They walked side by side without touching, yet every step between them shimmered with the electricity of two souls destined to collide. Elena spoke of little things at first: the cold wind, the dim lights of the city, a poem she had read that morning about the weight of human hearts. Adrian listened, but his thoughts drifted toward the confession pressing painfully at the edge of his breath. He had carried it too long. The fear of losing her, the fear of his love being a burden she could not carry. But he loved her with the type of love that aches, the kind that demands to be felt even when it destroys the one who carries it last. Beneath the glow of a single lantern, Adrian stopped. He looked into her eyes with such intensity that Elena felt the world spin softly beneath her feet. His voice trembled as he told her the truth: how deeply he loved her, how long he had tried to silence it, how impossible it had become to keep it buried. The moments stretched, suspended between hope and despair, and Elena, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice, felt tears gather at the corner of her eyes. She had loved him too. Perhaps she had always known it. But her heart was a fragile glass that had been broken before, and she feared the sharpness of hope. Elena reached for his hand, and when their fingers intertwined, something ancient awakened in both of them, something raw, something sacred. She confessed that she felt the same, but her voice shook with hesitation. Love, to her, was not a gentle tide. It was an ocean capable of swallowing her entirely. Yet Adrian held her hand tighter, promising silently to hold her through every fear. Their hearts beat in a fragile rhythm of longing, and for a brief moment the city around them vanished, leaving only two souls learning how to breathe in the presence of something bigger than themselves. Days passed, and their love blossomed with the graceful agony of romantic tragedy. They spoke for hours, sometimes about everything, sometimes in quiet that felt more intimate than words. They met in hidden cafes, exchanging shy smiles warmed by candlelight. They walked through ancient gardens where the world seemed woven from forgotten poetry. And though their love deepened, so too did the shadows in Adrian's eyes, shadows he tried to hide behind gentle gestures and soft laughter. Elena noticed, but she chose to believe that love would be enough to heal whatever haunted him. But the truth, like a storm, does not wait for permission to break. Adrian had been suffering in silence for years, fighting battles within himself that no one knew of. He feared letting her see the darkness he carried, his past failures, his guilt, his quiet despair that gripped him during sleepless nights. He wanted to protect her from the weight he bore, but in doing so he pushed her away. The more he tried to hide, the more Elena felt him slipping through the cracks of her fingers, like sand she could not hold tight enough. She begged him to open up, to let her in. She told him that love was not meant to be carried alone. But Adrian was convinced that if she saw the truth of his pain, she would leave him. So he retreated behind silence, offering warm smiles that no longer reached his eyes. He kissed her with a tenderness that felt like goodbye, and Elena, terrified of losing him, clung to the memory of his earlier warmth, refusing to believe that love could fade even as it was breaking. The first fissure appeared on a rainy afternoon. Adrian canceled their plans, saying he needed time alone. Elena, feeling something was terribly wrong, came to his home anyway. She found him staring out the window, his hands trembling slightly, his face pale. When he saw her, he forced a smile, but she felt the lie in it instantly. She placed her hand on his cheek, whispering his name with all the tenderness in her soul. But he pulled away. That single gesture shattered her. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she asked what she had done wrong. Adrian, heartbroken by her pain and furious with himself, choked on the words he wanted to say. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he loved her too much, that he feared he would destroy her happiness, that he felt unworthy of her life. But instead, he whispered the cruelest lie he had ever spoken, that he didn't love her anymore. The words tasted like blood on his tongue. Elena collapsed inside herself, her breath trembling as if the world had been torn from beneath her feet. She left his apartment in silence, walking through the rain as though the sky mourning for her. Adrian sank to the floor as soon as she left, tears burning his eyes. He had pushed away the only person who had loved him with a purity he had never believed he deserved. Days became weeks, and their separation carved wounds deeper than either of them expected. Elena tried to move forward, but everything reminded her of him. The places they visited, the poems he liked, the sound of his voice echoing through her memory. She reread his old messages, searching for signs of why he had stopped loving her, unaware that he still loved her so fiercely that it was breaking him from the inside. Adrian wandered through his days like a ghost. He avoided the places they once shared, unable to bear the memories. Nights were the worst. He lay awake, drowning in guilt, replaying her tearful face over and over, punishing himself for believing that hurting her would protect her. The darkness inside him grew heavier, whispering lies that he was beyond saving, that Elena deserved a life unburdened by his flaws. But love, even wounded, has a heartbeat of its own. One evening, Elena walked to the bridge where they had first confessed their feelings. She stood alone, the wind brushing softly against her cheeks. She whispered his name into the night, a quiet confession of love that had nowhere left to go. She felt the ache tighten in her chest, realizing she could not unlove him. No matter how hard she tried, at the same moment, Adrian, unable to endure the silence any longer, found himself walking toward the same bridge, drawn as if fate were pulling him. He approached slowly, the weight of regret anchoring his steps. When he saw her standing there, illuminated by the moon, his breath vanished. It felt as though destiny had given him one final chance. Elena saw him, and her heart jolted painfully. They stood facing each other, two broken hearts separated by a wound made of fear and love. Adrian finally stepped forward and let the truth spill from him, the whole truth. He confessed everything he had hidden, every fear, every moment of despair, every lie he had told to protect her. His voice cracked as he admitted he still loved her, that he had never stopped. He begged for forgiveness he felt he did not deserve. Elena listened, tears glistening in her eyes, and though her heart ached, she understood. She stepped toward him, placing her trembling hand on his chest. She told him she loved him too, but love alone was not enough. Not without trust, not without honesty, not without healing. She promised she would stay if he allowed her into his darkness, if he trusted her with the fragments he had kept hidden. For the first time, Adrian let himself break in front of her, and she held him as he cried. Their pain mingled with their love, raw and imperfect, and the night wrapped around them with a fragile, aching beauty. But tragedy, like love, has its own rhythm. That Adrian's struggle did not vanish instantly. There were nights he still fought the shadows, mornings when despair whispered louder than hope. Elena stayed by his side, a quiet candle guiding him through the storm. Yet the path was not gentle. There were arguments, tears, moments when both doubted whether love was enough to hold them together. But every time they drifted apart, they found themselves reaching back, driven by a devotion neither could abandon. The world around them changed, seasons shifting, cities breathing, time painting new scars and new joys. Their love grew in the cracks between suffering and forgiveness, a fragile wildflower blooming in the ruins of old wounds. It was imperfect, bruised, trembling, but it was real, and in the end, that was enough. Their love remained a testament to the beauty and brutality of the human heart, a reminder that sometimes the most tragic stories are also the most romantic. Not because they end in sorrow, but because they survive it. Their souls carried the wounds of everything they had endured, but also the light of everything they had saved in each other. And though the future remained uncertain, Their hearts beat with a fragile hope, stitched together by the quiet truth they had both learned, that love, in all its pain and wonder, is worth choosing again and again, even when it breaks you.